In this video, I'm going to discuss simplifying expressions that involve both fractions and decimals. We see this quite a bit on the New York State exam, so I just want to make sure that we review it together. The objective is I can apply the order of operations to simplify expressions involving both signed fractions and decimals. First thing I want to do is make sure you remember your order of operations. So in math, we all agree we're going to work within parentheses first. Then, after all parentheses are handled, we'll move on to exponents. Parentheses can mean any grouping symbols. They might look like brackets. We call those parentheses, or they look like this. If there's any type of grouping symbol, you work within there first. Even if it was an absolute value, we consider that a grouping symbol, and we work within there first. Then we move on to exponents. Then the next step is the step that sometimes students a little bit stumble with. We have to do multiplication or division left to right. Because they learn PEMDAS, they think multiplication comes before division. No, multiplication or division left to right, and in our last step we do addition and subtraction, again, left to right. That's important. So if I look here in this problem, we see this division comes before that multiplication. We would handle this division before the multiplication. All right, let's do some actual problems. They ask this all the time on the multiple choice section of the state test. What is the value of the expression below? Negative 75 hundredths minus a negative 2/5 plus 4/10 plus a negative 3/4. And you're like, wow. What I do when I hit this problem is I look at the answers. I say, okay, the answers that the state is looking for are all in decimal form. I'm going to convert each of my fractions to a decimal. And there's, I think, some fairly easy ways to handle that. You could take your 2/5. I personally choose to convert that to tenths, because when something's in tenths, it's easy for me to write as a decimal, but you might just bottom out and do your conversion that way. So this is 5 times 2 is 10, so 2 times 2 is 4. 2/5 is the same as 4/10. 4/10 is a 4 in the tenths place. But I can also show you with bottom out. So if you do 2 divided by 5, 2 divided by 5. Now 2/5, you can already see that that's a fraction less than 1, because if you eat 2 out of 5 pieces of pizza, you haven't eaten the whole pizza. So this is going to be less than 1. So if you do your division backwards and you get a number greater than 1, you know you've made a mistake. That's why we have to really think about what we're doing. So 5 goes into 2 how many times? 5 goes into 2 0 times. So then I put a 0 after this. 5 goes into 24 times. So either way, you get your 0.4. I'm going to do something similar with our 3/4. So I'm going to take our 3/4. Now, I'm going to rewrite that as a fraction with 100 in the denominator, because then it's going to be easy for me to write it as a decimal. So how do I get from 4 to 100? I multiply by 25. If I'm going to multiply the denominator by 25, I had better multiply the numerator by 25. So I'm really just multiplying by a fancy form of 1, and I come up with an equivalent fraction. 3 times 25 is 75. 75 hundredths is written as 0.75. 75, and it ends in the hundredths place. Again, we could also take a look at 3/4. We could say 3 is less than 4. This is definitely a fraction less than 1. Visually, if we looked at it, definitely not a whole circle. It's 3 out of 4 parts. So I do 4 into 3. 4 goes into 3 0 times, include a 0 after the 3. 4 goes into 37 times. 4 times 7 is 28. Subtract off. Then we have, make that a 2. 10 minus 8 is 2. We get to drag down another 0. 4 goes into 25 times. And you'll notice once I start working my division inside the my long division, I no longer have decimal points running around in here. Once you shove your decimal up, slide it up, you don't carry it along. So that's 7/500 either way. So now the whole point is I needed to do that so that I could now handle this problem. Negative 0.75 minus negative 2/5 we realized was 0.4 plus 0.4 plus a negative 0.75. Now that it's all in decimal form, I can handle this. First of all, I'm going to take care of any double signs and make them a single sign. So this is negative 0.75 or 0.75 minus a negative is plus 0.4 plus 0.4 plus a negative is minus 0.75. Got lots of ways you could go about this. Maybe you combine all your negatives. So off to the side, I do negative 0.75, negative 0.75. Signs are the same. I find the sum. That's 10, 7, 8, and 7. Is that 15? I so hope. And then my decimal point is 2 places over. Got to carry down that decimal place. So it's 1.50 or just 1.5. And what kind of 1.5? A negative. We only have negatives running around. So once I combine those two, I get negative 1.5. Now I'm going to combine my positives. So I'm going to do my 0.4 plus 0.4. 4 and 4 is 8. So that's 0.8. That's 8/10 plus 0.8. Now at this point, our signs are different. I find the difference. Got to know what's the difference between 1.5 and 0.8. So 1 and 5/10 and 8/10. Okay, if we got to find the difference, 1.5 minus 0.8. Guessing it's 0.7, but let's check it out. 15 minus 8 is 7.7. So our difference is 0.7. What did I have more of? Oh, I had more negatives because my 1.5 is greater than my 0.8. That would be like $1.50. That would be 80 cents. So my final answer is negative 0.7. All right, let's take a look at another one. All right, let's take a look at this one. So right now, as I look at this, I'm like, what's the value of the expression below? Okay, well, I look here and I go, oh, all my answers this time are in fraction form. So that tells me I'm going to convert this decimal to a fraction because if my answers are in fraction form, I want to handle the problem in fraction form. If this wasn't multiple choice, you can make a decision. You either convert everything to fractions or convert everything to decimals. It really makes no difference. But the numbers have to be in the same form before you can perform the operations on them. Okay, so negative 0.35. That's 35 hundredths. If I read this using place value, 35 hundredths. 35 hundredths. And then I keep my little negative sign. All right, so this is 8/15 divided by negative 35 hundredths. Lots of ways to go about dividing our fractions. However, probably your teachers got to your keep, change, flip, your, they have lots of little sayings that I can't even remember, but you keep your first fraction, you change your division to multiplication, and then you multiply by the multiplicative inverse of this. You flip this one around. And for a fraction, if there's a negative, I can put one negative anywhere. One negative in the fraction just means you have one negative. So it doesn't matter if I put it on top, bottom, or some people write it way in front. All right. Now, I could multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. I'm just wondering if it might be a little bit easier to do some division here. Like I know 5 goes into 15 3 times, and 5 goes into 100 20 times. I'm just trying to make my life just a little bit easier. Now I'm going to multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. 8 times 20, 8 times 2 is 16, so 8 times 20 is 160. Got my little negative sign there. Oh, I could have simplified here also. Oh well. 3 times 35. I should have divided out by another factor of 5. 3 times 35. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times, so that's 105. 105. And again, I can see now I have a factor of 5. If something ends in a 0 or a 5, I know I can divide top and bottom by 5. And what's 160 divided by 5? 5 goes into 16 3 times. 5 goes into 10 twice. So my top number is 32. Don't lose your negative. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. And then 105 divided by 5. 5 goes into 10 twice. Drag down a 5. 5 goes into 5 once. Negative 32 over 21. Negative 32 over 21 it is. All right, so hopefully that one helped. Maybe we'll try one more, and then it'll be enough practice. So if your answers are all in fraction form, convert everything to fractions. If your answers have been in decimal form, convert everything to decimals. If it's a long response, who cares? Just get them all in one form, either fraction form or decimal form, then perform the operations. Let's see if there's one more to do. Oh, great. So these are all in decimal form. So I'm going to convert 3 1/2 to a decimal. Some of you are like, oh, that's 3.5. If you're not like, oh, that's 3.5, 1/2, I can convert that into tenths. 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 tenths. 5 in the tenths place. You could also, if you know it's 1 divided by 2, 2 goes into 1, 2 goes into 1, 0, 2 goes into 10, 5 times. So either way. And then some of you right now, you're like, oh, 9 3/4, oh, that's negative 9.75 within parentheses, divided by negative 2.5. Again, you either go through the process. If you're unsure about 3/4, you write your fraction with the denominator of 100. Or, again, you could always do your bottom out. We've talked about converting your fractions into decimals. All right, so 3.5 minus 9.75. So I look at it and I say, okay, are those signs the same or are those signs different? This one's positive. Right in front of that is a negative. Signs are different. Find the difference. Okay, I'm going to find the difference, and then I'll keep what I have more of. So I have 9.75 minus 3.5. You know, your scrap work off to the side. You don't keep, you know, this is our scrap work. So I'm going to subtract, find the difference, then I'll just keep what I have more of. You'll notice I lined my 5 up underneath my 7, and I included a 0 here in the hundredths place because you have to line up your place values. 5 minus 0 is 5. 7 minus 5 is 2. Drag down your decimal point. 9 minus 3 is 6. And what do we have more of? Oh, 9 is definitely bigger than 3. Negative 6.25 divided by negative 2.5. So now we're just going to go ahead and do this division. First of all, a negative divided by a negative. I know my final answer will be a positive, so that's helpful. And then I'm going to do 2.5 into 6.25. Now here's the deal. If I have to move this decimal point over, you always have to have the number on the outside of your fraction box, division box, to be a whole number, and if you need to move that over 1, you need to move that one over 1. So what I'm really doing is 25 into 62.5. How many times does 25 go into 62? Oh, that's twice. 2 times 25 is 50. Subtract off. And we have 12 left over. Drag down a 5. How many times does 25 go into 125? Well, I think of quarters. How many quarters in $1.25? There's 5 quarters in $1.25. First of all, don't forget to drag up that decimal point. So 5 times 25 is 125. So 2.5 is our answer, and it has to be a positive 2.5 because it was a negative divided by a negative to get to a positive. There we go. That's the answer. Hopefully this was just a quick review of get the numbers in the same form, either all fractions or all decimals, perform the operations in the correct order using PEMDAS, order of operations. Thanks. I hope that helps.